found is one of you of.
All right, we're live, guys. Sorry to interrupt.
No worries. The only decent one I found is you carrying a sandbag. You know, being Cadre Daniel. So
this is getting recorded, guys.
I know.
Hello, brothers.
Hey, guys.
How's everybody today? Here's Carlos from Denver, Ricardo in Fort Lauderdale, and our special guest, Danny Stokes in Washington now, right?
That's right.
Hey, man, welcome to our channel. We wanted to get people to know you a little bit better, and we really are excited and curious about your journey and your story. And I'll let Ricardo introduce you to the group and to the people that will be watching this live and, of course, the recording. So, Ricardo, you want to introduce our guest?
Of course. Yeah, I actually met Danny last year at one of the Operation Enduring Warrior events. As the people that follow our channel know a little bit about Operation Enduring Warrior, but you know, I'll let Danny in a little bit tell his side of Operation Enduring Warrior. But Danny's an amazing guy. Has done amazing things. In the words of Walter Romano, which is the chairman of the board of Operation Enduring Warrior, he told me, Danny's one of the most amazing guys I've ever met. So, you know, he talks, everybody talks amazing things about you. I participate in Gorak events. So the Gorak Nation has always amazing things to talk about you. So, you know, I've done 60-mile events with you. I've done a few things with you, Batam Death March, and some events that are just memorable, you know. So we became fast friends. We've been talking consistently, and you're doing an amazing feat right now. So welcome, Danny. Love you, brother. You've enriched my life in more ways than one in the past year or so, and I can't wait to tell your story and can't wait to hear about your trip.
Great. Well, yeah, thanks for that introduction. I find it hard to believe that Walt, the godfather of OEW, would say something like that. He was probably drunk on tequila at the time. But yeah, thank you, Ricardo and Carlos, for having me on this and conducting the interview. And yeah, I'm looking forward to it.
Awesome, man. Tell us a little bit more about your military career. Because maybe that's where this whole journey of ultra endurance started.
Okay, so I enlisted in the United States Army shortly after high school, and my first job in the Army was a tank driver on an M1A1 Abrams tank.
Nice.
After a few years of that, I volunteered for Army Special Forces and went through the training pipeline to become a qualified Green Beret. And in that career field, I served in 1st Special Forces Group as a Special Forces Communications Sergeant. And after about 8 years in that job, I decided to switch career fields again in the military, and I went through Officer Candidate School to become a commissioned officer, and basically started back over at the bottom of the rank structure as a 2nd lieutenant, commissioned into the Signal Corps, which is communications. And while I was a signal officer, I served in 2nd Ranger Battalion as a Ranger platoon leader. I went through office, and then retired out of the Army in 2015 after serving for 23 years. So
thanks for your service, man. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you. So during that time, you know, 3 different jobs, and as the Army does with its soldiers, you know, was pushed to various duty assignments throughout the United States and also overseas, places like Germany and Korea, and numerous deployments to the hot spots in the Middle East, in Afghanistan, and a couple of places in the Pacific theater, such as Philippines. But yeah, that's kind of my military.
You're bilingual as well, right?
Oh.
Yeah. Yeah.
More than one. Now, how many languages do you speak, dude?
Well, that's difficult. I consider myself bilingual in English and Spanish.
Nice.
Although my Spanish is probably intermediate level at best. But during the course of my special forces training, I was trained in Russian and Chinese, Mandarin. Both of those languages are difficult to maintain proficiency in. So I can still get by in Chinese, but I would not go so far as to say bilingual or fluent in Chinese. I can get by. And then I also, over the years, during deployments, like in the Philippines, after 6 months there, especially with a background in Spanish, I learned Tagalog.
Yeah.
But the languages are very similar, you may know, but pretty much have forgotten all of that. Thai.
It's kind of like muscle memory, right? If you were dropped in the Philippines to do a super long bike ride, you would probably do okay, right?
I think so. And the same thing, I'm sure if I traveled to China or Taiwan, I think it would come back to me after, a couple of weeks, which is something I would really like to do. I would like to do a long trip across China because of my language background and like an immersion, a self-induced immersion course there.
That'd be awesome. That'd be really, really awesome. So Danny, what's the mindset of a Green Beret?
The mindset.
Why? Because the military is a vast organization.
Yeah.
And when you enlist, I want to believe, and maybe correct me if I'm wrong, that people have choices, right? You kind of have a choice of where to go with your career, where to enlist, where to volunteer. And so why a Green Beret, and what did that training do to you as a man, your mindset, tell us a little bit more about that, because I think that's super interesting for people to learn.
Okay. I think to answer that question, one would have to understand what a Green Beret does. And in Army Special Forces, Green Berets are used as force multipliers. So the idea is that a 12-man team of Green Berets are able to infiltrate behind enemy lines and link up with partisan forces or guerrilla forces and train, advise, and assist that indigenous force or that host nation force up to and include about 1,000 people. So to accomplish that, you have to know the target language so you can communicate. You have to have cultural sensitivity, cultural awareness, so that you can assimilate into that indigenous population. And then speaking of mindset, you have to have the will to overcome whatever obstacles put in your way, and also the intelligence and the resourcefulness to adapt to whatever may try to prevent you from accomplishing your mission, your ends. So what appealed to me about that career field is I really wanted to operate in a cross-cultural environment. I wanted to use language skills. I wanted to use cultural knowledge to be able to influence people in that environment, in that setting. It's unconventional compared to conventional forces. Like I said, as a tanker, you're not working necessarily with any kind of host nation personnel. You're in a big, huge 65-ton vehicle, and your goal is to shoot enemy vehicles like that and kill them. And that's conventional military operations. So with unconventional, you're trying to work by, with, and through the people in that strategic area.
So would you say that you have to develop some pretty good problem-solving skills, communication, people skills? I mean, those are critical if you're gonna work side by side with somebody that is a local, right? That has a different culture, a different mindset even.
Absolutely. And one of the most important values and skills that is ingrained into Green Beret recruits is the ability to what we call establish rapport. So from the lowest peasant with no education, illiterate, up to diplomats and generals and heads of state, a Green Beret is expected to have the ability to establish rapport, build a connection, and influence that person towards whatever your goals are.
That's great.
Communication is critical. I mean, that's and as you know, in everything we do, as in the events, in the trip you're doing, I mean, you're meeting people on a daily basis. On a daily basis, you're going through places that you've never been in most of these places, and you gotta establish rapport not only to find a place to eat, to find a place to sleep. You were telling me a little bit how that all works. So yeah, and it's definitely a very important skill, and being an entrepreneur, that's a critical skill, I think so as well.
Right.
That's awesome. So how did you get involved then after the military with the ultra endurance events, and maybe tell us a little bit after that about your journey that you're doing right now, your bike journey.
Okay. I guess it would start with fitness.
Yeah.
So being in special forces, fitness is very critical to not only accomplishing your mission, but to your survival. So I've sort of always considered myself an athlete and tried to maintain a high level of fitness. Transitioning out of the military, I got involved with a company called GoRuck that leads endurance events, GoRuck challenges. Ricardo mentioned that company. So this company only hires special forces veterans to lead their events. And at first I wanted to be an event leader because it was still in the fitness industry. But the events proved to be much more meaningful. There's a very deep impact for the participants because they go through some suffering and they bond together. And then I got caught up in this community as well and loved the GoRuck community. It led me to lead that sounds funny. It led me to lead. It brought me to a custom event in which I was the leader. In Knoxville, Tennessee, back in 2016. So this was, only about a year after I left the Army. This custom GoRuck event was for Operation Enduring Warrior. Operation Enduring Warrior, or we call it OEW, is a veteran services organization, a nonprofit, with the mission to honor, empower, and motivate our nation's wounded veterans, and now it includes services for wounded police officers. But at that time, I didn't know anything about the OEW mission. All I knew is that I'm an event leader and I have to show up and put these people through the ringer and give them an amazing 12 to 16 hour kick in the nuts. That's what they wanted.
Nice.
At this event were two disabled Army veterans, one of whom had severe disabilities, missing both legs, very high amputations. His name is Nick Kolchar, the Raging Panda. For people in the OCR world, you may know of him. He's an amazing man. And then the other adaptive athlete is Earl Gramble, who is now one of my teammates within OEW. So those were what we called those two men were the honorees. And then
Errol is actually running for Congress right now.
Yeah, that's right. In the state of Pennsylvania, he is. Yeah, that is really exciting. And he came in, this is a tangent, but Earl met me in Ventura, California last week. He was out there on a speaking engagement, not related to his campaign. He does public speaking in prisons. But yeah, he came out to meet me on my bicycle tour and told me a little bit about his bid for Congress and his way ahead. And so Yeah, so Earl was at that event, and hey guys, another tangent is if you see me like veering off from where you on the stage,
I'll bring you back. No worries.
okay.
You're good. You're good.
Yeah, no worries, bro. No
All
worries.
right, I have a bad habit of doing that. I'll just follow the rabbit on down the hole, and then so where were we? Oh yeah, so the Knoxville OEW event. There were 4 masked athletes at this event. So within OEW, we have a team of about 24 people that go through a special tryout, and they are what we call the masked athlete team. And those 4 masked athlete team members were empowering Earl and Nick at this Knoxville event, and they had a tremendous, made a tremendous impression on me because out of the 35 or 40 participants in that event, it was the MAT members and the 2 honorees that were stepping up, taking initiative on every mission scenario, on every task, and they didn't require any modification, any alternate event, I didn't have to dilute anything for them. And I just left that event wondering, who are these people? Their caliber of mental toughness was unmatched. It turns out one of the MAT members is the president of OEW now. And so I asked him, hey, how can I get involved with this organization? I really want to weigh in. So he told me about the indoctrination process, the tryout process, and I went through it myself a couple months later, and I joined the MAT team. I'm currently the MAT team leader. And so that's okay. So that got me from the military GORUCK OEW.
Yeah.
I can't remember if there was another part of the question. Sorry, Carlos.
No. That's great. You know, man, you told us what your transition was. Now you're an OEW, Operation Enduring Warrior, for those of you guys that don't know, that help adaptive athletes and disabled veterans to basically, in my opinion, I haven't been part of an event yet. Ricardo hasn't been involved, but looking from the outside in what I think that OEW is doing, and it's an amazing journey and purpose, which is they are truly empowering people that have lost a lot, right? Have lost limbs, have lost mental capacity, have lost physical capacity to go and participate in these events that really, at the end of the day, help them regain that trust in themselves and that self-worth and that confidence to go and not only be fit for the rest of their lives and maybe participate in more events, but go win in every other area. Right. And that's what I see. That's why that organization is so near and dear to our hearts. So you're now part of OEW. Ricardo, you were going to say something.
Yeah, and it's also feeling part of a community, which is, I think, I've seen it firsthand how a lot of honorees, they no longer feel like they're part of something greater than themselves, which the military does for a lot of people. You know, and OEW, I think, does an amazing job about that, and just inspiring. We lift others, and just they end up, I think, giving us more. The honorees, that I think you can agree with this, Danny, is that the honorees many times give us way more than we are actually giving them at an event.
Yeah, I would agree with that. Yeah, it's very enriching. It's very fulfilling, rewarding to be able to help somebody in that manner. And one thing you never see, or one thing that's never really discussed in and around OEW is the suicide prevention that occurs. So the indirect consequence of this empowerment is these disabled people remain alive with purpose, with fulfillment, with enrichment, and they don't end their life. They don't check out early because they feel isolated and broken and useless. So when OEW opened up the mission to include police officers, this has an amazing impact across the whole nation, because the suicide crisis among law enforcement is out of control, and there are very few organizations that are doing anything about it. Yeah. But OEW is, and so I'm the kind of person, I want to be part of the solution. Yes. And it is a solution for that specific population. It's working.
Agreed. Awesome. And going back to fitness, brother. You know, yes, you're a cadre at Gorak, where you are.
What does that mean? What
where you are? Yeah, actually, what tell us what it means to be a cadre at Gorak.
Event leader. So the word cadre or cadre, depending on how you pronounce it, from what I understand of that word, it's a French word. And in the United States, when we first formed this nation, the Continental Army used instructors from the French Army. French was our ally, and it simply means instructor. So within the U.S. military, at various courses that you go to, the instructors are referred to as cadre. Since GORUK was founded by a Special Forces veteran, somehow or another this word came into play. So now we refer to the GORUK event leaders as cadre.
Okay. Yeah, like, so awesome, man. So like I was saying, yes, you're a cadre at GORUK and an athlete at Operation Enduring Warrior. Well, you're more than an athlete. I mean, you're a staple there, and you're definitely somebody that's trying to lead the charge. And like you said, you're the MAT team leader. And but besides that, you're helping others, but you yourself have embarked on amazing challenges for your own well-being. And at one time when we were speaking, you told me that once a year you try to push yourself in something that is beyond what you have previously accomplished. So tell us a little bit of that and how that has enriched your life, how that has had an impact on everything you do.
Well, to summarize that, and then I'll elaborate, there's a saying that I always remind myself: you have to live hard to be hard. And so you can't rest on your laurels. Anything that you accomplished in the past, or any adversity that you overcame, or any troubles that you went through, those aren't persistent necessarily. You know, you kind of have to induce something hard, something difficult every now and then in order to maintain that level of resiliency. So with that concept in mind, you know, you have to live hard if you want to be hard. Like you mentioned, about once a year, I try to come up with some challenge for myself that I probably would fail, as I don't want to make it an easy challenge. And over the past few years, I've gradually increased the difficulty. To this year, I increased the difficulty to what I consider to be an epic level.
Yeah.
So,
well, Danny, I think what you've done is over the years, you've been leveling up. And of course, now, after a few years of doing this, it is only natural that the next level up is epic. So tell us about that epic journey you're on right now.
So the Epic Bicycle Tour is an attempt to ride a mountain bike from the top of the world to the bottom of the world. So from Prudhoe Bay, Alaska, which is as far north that you can go by road, at least in North America, to Ushuaia, Argentina, which is the southern end of the road. So this is about a 15,000 mile journey. It covers obviously the entire Western Hemisphere from top to bottom. And I wanted to challenge myself with this journey because to move under my own power for that far of a distance across our globe and see with my own eyes basically every climate, every ecosystem, every nation along the way with all their inherent cultures and peoples. This is something that I've never attempted before. It's a scale beyond anything that I've ever dreamt up.
Has it been done before by anybody else?
Yes. Yeah. So this is not something original. However, I'm not trying to take credit where credit is not due. When I dreamt up this ride, I didn't know that it had been done before. And I actually looked at a globe, and with my finger, I traced the road to the northernmost point, and then I looked at the southernmost point, and those two towns that I just mentioned, those were like the bookends of my trip. And then I began to fill out the plan. And as I did research, there have been hundreds of other cyclists that have done this journey in both directions. Okay. And there have been motorcyclists, there have been vehicles, and people have actually hiked it on foot before. So yeah, I'm not doing anything new, but it's new for me. So
yeah. No, and I bet you it's probably hundreds over a long period of time. I don't think like this year, 2020, there's 100 people doing what you're doing, right? So it is significant in my opinion. How long do you project this will take you?
8 months.
8 months to go from top to bottom. And how far along in the journey are you now?
So I made it as far as San Diego, California. So approximately 4,000 miles behind me.
Nice.
So that's maybe a third of the way, something like that.
And the first few miles, man, I mean, not few miles, the first few thousand miles, I mean, you were in the middle of winter in Alaska, right? I mean, it was. I've been following you all along. It was a pretty brutal winter.
Tell us about that part. Tell us about. I mean, most people don't bike on the ice, right? And on sub-zero weather. Tell us a little bit more about what that is like.
Well, I underestimated the impact of cycling in sub-freezing temperatures. And the reason I underestimated that is because I have a lot of experience in winter conditions. I'm a mountaineer. I spent a lot of time in, surviving in the cold, but I didn't have any experience on a bicycle in those conditions. So what happens is when you're on a bicycle, say pedaling up a hill, and you have on all of your cold weather gear, obviously you begin to sweat. And to try to regulate that and stay below the perspiration threshold, it's very, very difficult to do. As soon as you crest that peak and you begin going downhill, now you have wind chill factor. So it might be 20 degrees outside, and you're rolling at 25 or 30 miles an hour. So now you've got wind chill, which would equate to 50 below zero. So the core isn't too bad, but extremities, fingers, toes, nose, ears, face, those kinds of things, it's not only uncomfortable and painful, but it's also detrimental. Like frostbite occurred. I got frostbite on my foot while I was in Yukon. So that's what you can expect cycling in the cold weather. But the other factor is simply operating, surviving, stopping to set up camp, or trying to find food, or even a restaurant that's closed because it's the off season and there are no tourists in the wintertime in Alaska, or very few. So a lot of challenges were in the way as I made my way across Alaska and Yukon territory of Canada.
So far in the journey, what has been the hardest challenge you've encountered?
I think the first 500 miles of this ride were the most difficult cycling I've ever done. And that's because the surface, the road surface itself was like sticky mud or snow or gravel. So just pedaling across that surface provides a lot more resistance to overcome versus if you're riding on a hard ball road, like an improved surface. You give it a couple pedal cranks and then you can coast for a while. But so that surface alone was just murder. Yeah. There were times where I could get off the bike and walk faster than I could pedal. But also, when I started the journey, that's probably when my bicycle was the heaviest. During that 500 miles, I knew that there would be no resupply. So I was carrying a lot of food with me, over a week's worth of food, maybe 30 pounds plus, a couple gallons of water. I quickly realized I could resupply water from the streams. So that reduced my water weight.
How many calories a day are you consuming?
During the cold weather, probably 8,000 calories. Wow. And that was probably insufficient because I lost a lot of weight at first.
Really? How many pounds?
I lost maybe 15 pounds.
Wow. That's a lot.
Yeah. And
over a period of what, a month? 2 months?
That was, I think it was less than that, probably within the first 2 to 3 weeks.
Oh, wow. Guys, listen up. It's New Year's resolutions. If you want to lose 15 pounds, start biking. Start biking from Alaska to Patagonia now.
There you go. Yeah, just shed some weight.
Wow. Cool. So, man, you're in the middle of this. You get to San Diego. That has taken how long from Alaska to San Diego so far?
Cycling days, it's taken 50. So those are days that I'm actually on the bicycle and on my route. But altogether, about 3 months. Yeah. Simply because I've taken a few breaks along the way. I was home for 2 weeks over Thanksgiving. Right now, I'm home for a week to regroup after being robbed in LA. And then back in October, I came off the ride for a couple of weeks to do some work for GoRuck. And to do an OEW event. So, 50 days to answer your question.
Cool.
Hey, something very cool that also happened that I on the beginning of your ride and I think it was a little bit unexpected is that your son joined you, right? Your son joined you at the beginning of the event of the ride, which was, I'm sure, very, very meaningful for you. And tell us a little bit about that and the time you spent with your son, because I think that was awesome.
Yeah, it was definitely the highlight of this ride so far, was spending those 9 days with my son, Noah. He's 25 years old. He's my oldest son, the oldest of four children. And I felt a little bit guilty knowing that I was going to leave home voluntarily, for at least 6 months. And I wanted to include my children somehow in this ride. And they are all grown and out of the house and tied up with their own priorities and their own lives. So Noah, he said that he could support my ride, at least a part of it. And so the plan initially was he would come to Alaska and crew for me. He would support me, setting up camp at night and basically leapfrogging a rental vehicle ahead of me and having food ready and all that. And once we began to look at the cost of that, we realized it would be cheaper if he just rode with me and we just kind of supported each other as you would in a buddy team. So we scrapped the idea of him crewing and we got him a mountain bike and configured it. So we started the ride, the Dalton Highway, that first 500 miles. I said that was the most difficult. And he did that with me. And it was a really amazing bonding time for the two of us. Even though we're father and son, we really operated as if we were simply teammates. Yeah. And if we'd finish riding for the day. There were certain things that I did to set up camp just, naturally. And there were certain things that he did, and it required almost no communication. We just each did our role. We'd go to ground, get inside of our tent, and it was obviously cold, and we were exhausted, and we would wake up in the night with terrible cramps in our legs, and we'd kind of help each other out, to get through those Charlie horses, or to help dry out one another's gear. And it kind of goes back to what I was saying about GoRuck events. People have this bonding experience by shared suffering.
Yeah.
And so my son and I went through a very difficult 500 miles together, and it made our relationship stronger. It made our bonds tighter.
Yeah.
And I mean, he's an adult man that I haven't done any trips with in a long time. So we haven't done any adventure like this since he was, a teenager.
Yeah.
So it was an opportunity just to spend some great time with my son, and
awesome.
Hopefully he enjoyed it as much as I did.
Oh, man, I'm sure he did, man. And so let's touch on that a little bit, because I think that, the three of us have participated in Spartan races and endurance events and things of that nature. What would you say to people out there that are watching this, that want to have an experience with their son, their daughter, on an endurance event, a race, or just something like this? It doesn't have to be, of course, the Alaska to Patagonia race, but any kind of activity that kind of gets them out of their comfort zone, to enjoy some time together and enjoy some pain together. Because I think there's a lot to be said about enjoying a little bit of pain together, stretching yourself to a different level that creates a much stronger relationship. Wouldn't you agree?
Absolutely. That's right. So, there's some things I did well as a parent. There's other things that I failed terribly as a parent. And I think we can all evaluate ourselves as far as that goes. And we probably are our own worst critics. But I think it starts when the children are young. You have to model, you have to be an example of the values that you want out of your children. Yeah. And so if you're a couch potato that comes home from work and just plops down on and behind the TV set or behind the computer, you really can't expect that your child is going to ever do outdoor activities, athletic adventures, that kind of thing. So that's first, set the example to your children. And that goes with nutrition. That goes with how you treat people, how you treat their other parent, etc. The other thing is, as your children are young, you have to put them in some situations where they are challenged, physically challenged, some uncomfortable positions with a little bit of suffering at their level. Obviously, as a child, you're not going to expect them to do an agoge or Noah, this same son, he actually did the Bataan Death March with me when he was 14 years old. And my second son, Silas, he rode across the United States with me on a bicycle when he was 14 years old. So at that adolescent age, children still, they have this concept. They want to please their parent. They want to do things that make you proud of them. So stretch their capabilities.
Yeah.
And then as your children transition into adulthood and out of adolescence, I think you just have to constantly present opportunities for them and figure out what things that they're into, what interests that they have, and understand that those are probably going to be different than your own.
Yeah.
And then seek those opportunities.
Support them. Yeah.
Exactly.
That's awesome, man. That's awesome. Hey, Danny, man, I could go for hours asking you about your journey and this trip and your experiences, but there's a lot of people out there that will be watching this video that are in their journey to build a business, to complete a long endurance race, to enlist in the military, or to do anything that really they haven't done before, and that creates some fear in their mind and creates some level of discomfort. What would you tell those people that are, you know, in that journey and about to make that decision? What has helped you to overcome the fear?
Understanding your own motivation for whatever that goal is, and then having the will, or having the sense of purpose that nothing will prevent you from achieving that. So I don't know how best to phrase that, but don't give up.
Yeah.
DFQ.
Yeah. Have you ever thought about quitting yourself along the way?
On this ride, no.
Yeah.
There have been times in the past, you know, things. I'm human, so there have been things in the military that I quit, and I still hate myself for that. You know, there's a saying, "Quitting is forever." That's true.
It is.
Yeah, but I think you learn from those experiences, and so every now and then, failure is a great teacher. Quitting something is humbling, and if a person can learn from those experiences, then it was, in the end, it was good. But I will not quit this bike tour. I can guarantee you that. I have a strong sense of confidence in completing my mission, although it's no guarantee, and I understand that, and I embrace that. But, you know, to circle back to your question, somebody that's watching this in your audience that is attempting something that they're not sure if they're going to be successful, just go for it. Put those thoughts out of your mind and just go for it. And then overcome those obstacles as they present themselves, and have that solidarity, that unity of mission, that purpose, and just go for it. Don't accept defeat.
Yes, 100%. I have a strong feeling that you're going to get it done, brother. So we are rooting for you. We know you're going to get it done. Let people know where to follow you. Can we follow you somewhere so that we can see where are you in the journey? How do we connect with you? To your Facebook page, your YouTube channel? How do people connect with you so that we can check in and see how you're doing and where you're at?
Cadre Daniel is my handle on Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube. So those three platforms, you can find me, all one word, CADRE DANIEL. Cadre Daniel.
And he'll be in March in Ecuador. So you know, we're planning to. I'm planning to head down there and meet him there, and just basically spend a couple days with him, you know, and follow his journey. So that'll be an amazing thing that I really don't want to miss. So looking forward to see you, man. We haven't seen you in months, and you and your OEW have really made a big impact in my life. So this is only the beginning, you know.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to riding some miles. It'll be great as a visitor in your home country to hear what enriching information that you have as I travel from the border to Quito. I'm really looking forward to that. Hey, and OEW appreciates you, Ricardo. You're an amazing volunteer, and you've got some great ideas that are really going to benefit this organization and help our honorees. So thank you for what you do for OEW.
Oh, it's my pleasure, man. It's my pleasure. If I could, I'm gonna do everything in my power to help you guys grow and just spread your mission, which is amazing. And Carlos, you have to join us soon in one of these events.
Oh, for sure.
We got our first a race coming up in February here in Jacksonville, which is a MAT event. If you could join us, but if not, we'll find one soon that you can join us in for sure.
Yeah, I'll be there one day, and I'll tell you guys, I don't need to join a race to understand and know that you guys are doing amazing good. So anything that us marketer brothers can do for you guys to support your efforts, to get the word out there, to get more veterans to participate, to get more people to join the cause, we're here. We're rooting for you guys big time.
Excellent.
Awesome, Danny. We thank you for your time, brother. Hopefully you get to spend some R&R time at home, and then join in full force your race down to Argentina.
That's right. Thank you very much, Carlos. Nice to meet you today as well.
Nice to meet you,
brother. Keep at it, man. We'll talk soon. Okay.
Okay.
Take care.
Hey, brother.